Hello and welcome to Wisconsin in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm Dan McCaleb, executive editor of the Center Square Newswire service. Joining me again today is the Center Square's Wisconsin correspondent, Ben Yount. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing pretty well, although I haven't seen any UFOs. I watched the end of Hard Knocks, and our former football quarterback, who shall not be named, is making all of the headlines for saying that he saw a UFO in New Jersey years and years ago. Dan, have you seen a UFO?
I have never seen a UFO in my life. I didn't see that segment of Hard Knocks, but I certainly read about it. I also read about Aaron Rodgers bragging about his taunting of a New York Giant player in their final preseason game. I don't even know who you are. I don't know who you. What's your name?
That is, by the way, that is the absolute best insult ever on any. I don't know who you are. That is the greatest. By the way, this episode, the season of Hard Knocks, boring. I love that show. It's great. The drama. I mean, all you got to do is turn on a documentary camera on a football field and you get compelling stories. This year, boring.
I didn't watch it this year. I didn't watch much of it. I saw highlights and whatnot. Of course, Aaron Rodgers is now there, former All-Pro Green Bay back, future Hall of Famer, etc. And I figured they picked the Jets because of the intrigue surrounding Rodgers. But I didn't didn't get into it this year.
It was look, when UFOs and earrings are the sort of headlines from the show, you know that the football is not going to be good. I think the Jets have a great defense, but they also play in the East. So I'm just ready for football. Baseball's still going good. My Milwaukee Brewers trying their best not to throw away a lead in the NL Central, but this is why we're sports fans.
Well, speaking of football, the opening season of the NFL kicks off this weekend. We are recording this on September 7th. Ben, I wanted to ask you about school choice. We write a lot at the Center Square about school choice initiatives in Wisconsin and around the country. School choice advocates are saying that essentially their schools are much more efficient, lead to better outcomes than traditional public schools. What's this report that you wrote about?
This is taking a look at the numbers that the state has. And so many times when you write reports, the first question you get back is, well, where did those numbers come from? These are actually numbers from the State Department of Public Instruction, DPI, and it takes a look at per student funding. And what our friends over at School Choice Wisconsin did is they took a look at that per pupil spending, and then they took a look at test scores. What are we spending? What are we getting? And they found that school choice programs, particularly in Milwaukee and Racine, are much more cost effective, as they put it, than traditional public schools. Kids in these choice programs get better grades, get better marks, score better on the test, and do it for less money. The numbers from the story, Milwaukee Parental Choice Program kids were 89% more cost effective than Milwaukee Public Schools. The Racine Parental Choice Program was 92% more cost effective than Racine's public schools. Statewide, the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program, now that's for everybody outside of Milwaukee and Racine, it was 42% more cost effective. When you get the jump from the sort of urban school districts, Milwaukee, Racine, Green Bay, Kenosha, even Madison schools, to the rest of the state, you get a lot of those more affluent suburban and bedroom communities where the public school test scores are very, very high. But you also run into a number of smaller rural schools, and those can be a mixed bag. There are some smaller schools in outstate Wisconsin that score very well, and there are others that they're very, very small school districts, and they don't have the greatest of test scores. But this is another measurement, another snapshot is the term that I like to use. When you're comparing apples and apples between traditional public schools and choice schools, that show choice schools do very well.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue against the data, right? But traditionally, currently, teachers unions, public teachers unions, for example, oppose school choice options. Many Democrats do. How do you argue against that data, though?
It all comes back generally to feelings. I saw a piece at Chalkbeat earlier in the week that said, well, about a third of Americans think that education in the country overall is doing well. And 2/3 of Americans don't think American schools are performing. You have almost 70% of Americans who think that their kid's public school is doing fine. And that's the gap. Right? That you have an awful lot of people in Wisconsin who support the idea of school choice. Sure, kids in Milwaukee schools should absolutely be able to get out of Milwaukee schools. It's a whole other thing when you say, okay, well, do you want them to come out to your schools? Oh, no. We want them to go to a private school in Milwaukee. We don't want them coming out here with our kids. But no, teachers' unions argue, one, that this is somehow taking money away from traditional public schools, that when choice schools get state funding per pupil, that it is money that should belong to the public school or the public school union as opposed to the kid's family, the private school that is educating them. But a lot of this is just based on feelings that you don't hate teachers. You may not like the teachers union, but Mrs. Crabapple, who taught my daughter in second grade, she was great and she's not a bad person. And well, if she says she needs a raise, then I guess she needs a raise. And that's how teachers unions flew under the radar up and until coronavirus. But, I don't know that we have enough time in this podcast to talk about what the coronavirus did to public perception of teachers unions in public schools.
No, but I do want to reference a Center Square poll last month. The Center Square teamed up with Noble Predictive Insights and did a comprehensive poll of 2,500 Americans. This was not specific to Wisconsin. This was across the country. And the majority of Americans do support school choice. Interestingly, do support school choice initiatives. And in a separate question on the same poll, which you can read at thecentersquare.com, a majority of Americans think public education, traditional public schools, are not satisfactory, are not of high enough quality for teaching their kids. Ben, I'll give you the last word before we sign off.
This is something that is an ongoing debate in Wisconsin. And look at it this way. Wisconsin Republicans were so satisfied with their extra funding, their extra opportunities, their expansion of school choice, that they declared a budget that spent $10 billion more, raised taxes in Milwaukee and Milwaukee County, and sent millions and millions and millions of dollars to the University of Wisconsin. Republicans declared that budget a victory simply because of the expansion of school choice. That is how important school choice is to Republicans and many Republican voters here in Wisconsin.
Thank you, Ben, as always, for your insights. This has been Wisconsin in Focus. For Ben Yount, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.